Have you guys ever seen Beauty and the Beast? I'm sure you guys have. Beauty and the Beast is a Disney animated film, originally animated, now adapted into live action, with a protagonist who we know as Belle and another side protagonist known as the Beast. And they have this whole love story, and it's a beautiful movie, honestly. But the main reason I'm bringing this up is because Belle is portrayed as somebody who loves to read. She is a humongous bookworm, and there's even a song that the movie pretty much starts out with where she's singing with the rest of the cast, and they're singing, and she brings up how she's reading a book about a girl being saved by the prince, but she doesn't know it's a prince yet, and she goes to a library to pick out a new book. The Beast at one point throughout the movie even basically gives her his library and says, like, pretty much this is all yours, like, take all the books you want, whatever. My point with that is that she loves to read. She's portrayed as a humongous bookworm throughout the film. Although that's not the main point of the film, that is something that is like highly a light that is very brightly shined onto her, and that's something that I can really relate to, because just like Belle, I love to read myself. I have a humongous bookshelf here in my room filled with books and books and books. It's honestly overflowing. But today, we will be discussing some 5 benefits from reading. There are 5 benefits to reading. Well, there are more. However, today I will be talking about some 5 main points. That reading improves comprehension and critical thinking. It reduces the chance of illness, mental illness. It helps with sleep, and it boosts your empathy skills. So let's go ahead and dive right in. To start with comprehension and critical thinking, reading helps improve those skill sets. Wright from Nuvan's Health talks about how reading expands your vocabulary and sharpens your focus. Reading regularly can better lower stress levels and improve your mental health. It also lowers your heart rate, which in turn helps you to relax. And when you relax, you're not as stressed, obviously, and that just really helps people to not be so overwhelmed by what's going on in their life. That's something that I have found myself to be very helpful from reading. And Fier and Lorenzau from the Gale Academy Valencia database writes about how kids are having difficulty with English comprehension because they're being on their phone so much. So let's go ahead and talk about what happens because of that. So kids spend less time reading and more time on their phones, which in turn reduces their attention span. That's why so many kids nowadays are on their phone scrolling, and they honestly can't even scroll. They can't stay watching a 40-second reel or video online without scrolling because their attention span is so shortened. And it's because of them scrolling on their phone so much. So a solution to that would be to read instead. So by reading more and swapping that time out with your phone, or swapping your phone time with reading time, you are expanding your mind and learning more. You're broadening your critical thinking skills, your empathy, which grows from that, which is a topic we'll be discussing later. And it also improves your concentration because you're not so focused on finishing a video and scrolling. You're focusing on the words on the page and processing that in your brain. And so redirecting from scrolling to reading, books will not only help kids learn and expand their cognitive features, but it'll also strengthen their mental and emotional health. Secondly, reading can help lower the chances of mental illness. For example, dementia. Dementia is basically memory loss. They don't remember, it's harder to recall certain events in life, and it usually happens progressively as you get older. It's not like you wake up and you just all of a sudden forget who you are and everything. Although in some cases that might be true, but dementia is usually an adaptive thing that happens progressively. Marshall from the Library of Medicine writes that we can remember things better when they're warped into a story. Stories have power and therefore can persuade and manipulate people using their emotions and trying to take a jab at their emotions. For example, the story of the tortoise and the hare. In The Tortoise and the Hare, the main theme that we get from that is that slow and steady wins the race, right? We've all heard that before. And we see that the tortoise is moving super, 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 super slow, and the hare is just moving really, really fast. Yet the tortoise, somehow taking its time, manages to overcome the obstacle of the race and beat the hare. Amazing, right? So that story, as iffy as an example as it might be, you can even look at the Three Little Pigs and the wolf with the houses of brick, of I believe it is hay and twigs or sticks. There's different stories, not just those like folktale type of stories, but just I think stories in general, as them grabbing your emotions just really, sorry, let me rephrase that. When people are portraying stories and where they're explaining stories, they can affect your heart and mind. Like if you see a favorite character from a show pass away or have a huge injury, you're going to have a reaction to that because it affected you emotionally. And stories can do the same thing. And so if you were to place things or say things or write things in a story form, it'll help you better recall and remember information. That's why when somebody tells us any sort of drama that happened or a big life-changing event that happened, usually we recall it more because it was in a more dramatic story type of explanation or story type of exiting or it was in a story formed way is what I'm going to say. Therefore, reading regularly can reduce the risk of mental illness like dementia in a person's life. Thirdly, as you grow, you want to keep in mind that sleep plays a huge part in development of the mind. The Sleep Foundation tells us about the benefits of reading before sleep. Improved routine, your body slows down, it winds down, it's getting ready for rest, it relaxes, and it sends signals to your brain that it's time to rest. You don't want to be overwhelmed right before bed by being on your phone or even if you're not on your phone, sometimes your thoughts can keep you up at night. I know that from experience. And we don't want that because then we don't get the rest that we need to help our mind and body develop as we get older because our gears keep turning. So a solution to that would be to replace our phones with a book right before bed to reduce the exposure of light that we're getting in our eyes and hopefully reduce the information that we are also getting if we're scrolling on our phones. The exposure to light makes it difficult to go to sleep, hence why things like blackout curtains are good. If you have light coming in from your windows, that can help you better fall asleep because there's not so much light all around you, although that doesn't affect too many people, or it affects some but not others, so that's more of a personal preference type of thing. However, scrolling on your phone does affect everybody, and that way, by reading instead of being on your phone, it makes sure that your body doesn't stay up and instead knows that it's time to rest as well. Lastly, reading can help you develop better skills of empathy. Empathy is when somebody has a certain situation and you are feeling for that person. You are acknowledging that you see what they're going through and you feel what they're going through and you help them through that and you just kind of put yourself in their shoes. Lemire from Today.com talks about how reading more can make us more empathetic. Lemire references a study done in 2013 in Science, which says that people who read literary fiction tend to have a better understanding of others' emotions. Empathy helps in relationships. It helps you better understand people, like your parents, your partner, if you're in a relationship, or your siblings. And having empathy helps you in communication because it can help you get over any problems or any difficult conversations you guys may have or anything you might be going through. It helps you through that in a much smoother way than if you didn't have empathy at all. In conclusion, today I explained to you 5 reasons as to why reading is good for you. I explained how reading can improve critical thinking and comprehension, lower chances of mental illness in the future, improve your sleep, and develop more empathy. When I read books, more specifically for me, fantasy books, I can relate so much to them. It makes me happier, removes stress from my life, and reading before bed gets me a little more tired, which is good because it helps me know it's time to rest. One little change in your life, such as replacing phone time for reading time, can make a huge difference. Swap out your phone for a book. Try it. And even if you don't like to read, try an audiobook or a different genre. The right book is waiting for you to find it.